Okay, everybody. This video is going to be all about diffusion, and we're going to start with some definitions of what diffusion is, and then go into cells and how they work with diffusion. So first, the definition of diffusion: it is the net movement of molecules or atoms from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, and this is caused because of these molecules are moving very randomly. So you can see here, there's a very high concentration. There's a lot of these things. So they'd be bumping into each other, bouncing, and slowly that would cause the slow spread of these to the area of low concentration over here. So gradient, it refers to the difference between the area of high concentration and the area of low concentration, or an area with a gradient is an area where there is a subsection with a low concentration down here of a particular molecule, and another subsection has a high concentration. So we say that the gradient goes from the high down to the low. Doesn't necessarily have to go down the picture. I mean, it could be in some cases going up. And the other example we could have is equilibrium, where there is no gradient. So it's equal concentrations of that particular molecule throughout. With any kind of diffusion, we always have these three things will affect the rate. Changes in temperature, because the molecules will move more quickly when the temperature is raised. In fact, that's what temperature is. It's the average kinetic energy, the average amount of movement of those molecules. We're going to also have changes in the concentration differences. So if there's a bigger difference between the high concentration and low concentration, it'll move more quickly. If there's less of a difference, it'll move more slowly. And the medium, or the thing that it is in, that it's diffusing through. So for instance, it might be diffusing through water, might be diffusing through a membrane, it might be diffusing through agar or like a jelly-like stuff that we will use later on. Some just allow diffusion to happen at a higher rate or quicker. Some real life examples that you can think of, like right now, somebody's cooking bacon in the kitchen. Oh, you can smell that throughout the house. So that you have that diffusion of those bacon smell molecules, those molecules that are produced by bacon being cooked, and it's diffusing throughout the air. Same thing with someone who's like always seems to put on way too much perfume or cologne in public, and you can really smell that difference. Okay, so in cells, let's talk a little bit about in cells. We're talking about the need for cell membrane. So only small nonpolar molecules, see these are all nonpolar, can diffuse easily into and out of cells. It doesn't mean that the other ones cannot, they just do not do so very quickly or easily. Sometimes water molecules, even though it's a polar molecule, can diffuse pretty quickly. Okay. So we're talking about through the cell membrane. Here's our cell membrane. And these molecules can diffuse through the membrane or down the concentration gradient from high concentration to low concentration. And then here's a real life example. I mean, we just, in our unit earlier, we were talking about hemoglobin and the carry of oxygen. Well, this is inside the lungs. This is inside an air sac called the alveolus, one alveolus or alveoli. And so there's a lot of like, as you breathe in, you got a lot of oxygen that you breathe in. So it's a high concentration of oxygen. Out here, or in the blood vessels that surround it, the capillaries, there's a low concentration of oxygen. So the diffusion happens into the blood. Now, as we do cellular respiration, we're producing CO2. And so in these blood vessels, we have a higher concentration of CO2, and that will go to the lower concentration of CO2 where you exhale it out. Okay. On the other side now, if we look at down near the cells, is now away from the lungs. Now we're near like body cells, maybe even muscle cells. So we have this high concentration of oxygen in the blood compared to these body cells, which have a low concentration because they're using that oxygen. And so the oxygen will move into the cells here, and the CO2, which is built up because of all that energy being used and CO2 being a byproduct or a waste product of that, will diffuse into the blood. Okay, that's it.